Hello, you are listening to Glastonbury FM. I am your host, Sebastian Bignall, and this is a special podcast in which we will be finding out about things we can do to help the climate. Coming up on today's show, we will be interviewing the Mayor of Glastonbury, or more specifically his role as a director for Avalon Community Energy. We will also be hearing what the head teacher of Brookside Academy has to say about solar panels and how having them has affected the school. Later on in the show, we will be joined by Romano Ghirardello, and we will be discussing facts as well as some of his opinions towards the climate crisis. Now, the climate crisis, for anyone that doesn't know, is a current issue the world is facing regarding global temperatures and the general increase in them. This has all kinds of impacts on our planet, such as losing our ice caps and the homeland for animals. For instance, the polar bear, which has been listed as a threatened species in the US under the Endangered Species Act since 2008. To be more specific, according to the WWF, the Arctic is warming twice as fast as anywhere on Earth, with sea ice there declining by more than 10% every 10 years. Now obviously, the ice caps melting leads to a rise in sea levels. That causes flooding, loss of land, as well as the loss of towns, homes and crops, which really isn't good. Now, climate change holds much more of a danger to the planet than a simple increase in water, as over time, the likelihood of wildfires, intensity of droughts and tropical storms, as well as how frequently events like heat waves occur, will all increase. All of this knowledge doesn't take more than a few quick Google searches to find out, of course, but the more problems you discover, the more helpless you can start to feel, especially when you realise how many varying causes actually lead to climate change. But what can we actually do to help solve it? The Environmental Protection Agency, not the same one responsible for the dome around Springfield, says that electricity production accounts for 25% of greenhouse gas emissions. This is the second largest contributor of gas emissions in the world, with approximately 60% of electricity coming from the burning of fossil fuels. Now, if we were able to conveniently change our ways of creating electricity to be more sustainable for the planet, we would be able to reduce the levels of carbon by a massive level. And while granted it isn't as easy as simply changing all homes to run on wind turbines and solar panels, there is still a lot that can be achieved with a bit of work. The Glastonbury Town Council know this to be true, as they passed a notion for Glastonbury to become carbon neutral by 2030. This has led them to team up with Avalon Community Energy, or ACE, to help install the local community with solar panels, and as a result, reduce the level of carbon that Glastonbury produces. I have now come to ask John Cousins, Glastonbury Mayor and a Director of Avalon Community Energy, some questions regarding what they do. I will be playing you a shortened version of the full interview, so if you want to hear the full thing, remember to check out StrodeTV, where the extended interview will be shown. Okay, so we are now joined by John Cousins, Mayor of Glastonbury. Say hi.
Hello, good people of Glastonbury. Isn't it lovely to be on Glastonbury FM? How
Yes.
wonderful.
So, as a director of Avalon Community Energy, what is it that they have you do?
Well, Avalon Community Energy is a mutual society. It's a community benefit society. And as a director, it's another thing that I do that I don't get paid for. Everybody involved in it actually is doing it for the love of it as well.
Yeah, all volunteering.
All volunteering, and we're all members. So it's like as a mutual society, we're all members. We're elected from the membership. And I was one of the founding directors. And the idea of the director is basically to make sure that the business of the company, the co-op, is functioning well, and that the finance is being invested appropriately, and that everything connected to the installations that we do, because we install solar panels, and we're interested in renewable energy only, and we just have to make sure that all that is running smoothly.
Yeah.
And then there's an investment side, so you can be a member of this cooperative either as just a general member or an investor member. And the investors, we raise money from people who are members. That money goes into putting solar panels on roofs, for instance, and then it comes back to us through selling the electricity and through a thing called the feed-in tariff. And the money that's been invested, we pay an interest on that, and we pay the money back over so many years.
Yeah.
And the rest of the money goes to making sure that the plant that we have, the panels, etc., are all serviced well, etc. Anything that's left over, which is the surplus, we put into a community benefit fund, and then we have other directors, not myself, who look after that, and that is to support everyday folk in the community. At the moment, we've got to drive on insulation, because insulation is
that's
really
very important.
Yeah. And so the directors, we meet once a month, and we talk about all this good stuff that and making sure that everything goes well. And I've got such a wonderful team there. I was chair for many years, and now we've got a chap called Stuart Crocker who's taken over. He's such a wonderful chair, and we've got an amazing group of people. I sometimes feel a fraud, I don't have any kind of qualification around this at all, and I'm sat there with solicitor Sonia Bedford, who is a leading solicitor for renewable energy in the country. She's on the board. Stuart, who is absolutely phenomenal guy from Wales. He does like the food festival over there and is involved in many things, Friends of the Earth, all that sort of stuff. He's there. I've got Nikki Pillinger there, who's like one of the leading people on battery storage and all that sort of stuff in the country. Cara Naden is one of the other directors. She is the responsible officer for finance and climate change and addressing climate change in South Somerset. So, oh man, it's just
A lot of different people.
And I'm sat there, and I think I'm the token hick. I have to. All I need to do is bring a piece of straw with me and suck on it, going, "Yep." But it's an amazing thing. It's a really worthwhile thing to do. Climate emergency is the biggest issue we have, and for your generation, it's going to be even more critical.
Yeah.
People haven't really clocked what that means. And that's why I think so many young people are getting so frustrated with the older generation.
They feel like they're not really listened to.
The younger generation certainly aren't listened to. I mean, how do you feel about it?
Well, I feel like there's a lot of people that still don't really care, and it is difficult getting people to care at times if they're very stuck in their sort of viewpoints and ways, and you really do have to show them, but you've got to be careful how you do, because if you get too emotional, then they just make fun of you in the news and media, and that sells headlines and everything, making somebody look like they're all angry and everything when they are just trying to get a point across, because it is within reason to be emotional about these things, because it is a big deal. It's about the planet, but yeah.
Do you? I mean, I'm thinking as soon as you said that, I got like Greta come into my head. And,
yeah, exactly.
And she's really cool though, isn't she? I think she retains it well, and if she is angry, she uses it for a reason. But
yeah,
do the younger generation feel angry about it?
I think there's sort of a divide within things. Like some people, because of who they are, they might not care so much, but then other people feel really passionately for it, and it's...
When you mean some young people are just as sort of oblivious to it as the older generation?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I can't speak on their behalf, but you do get the kinds of people that will sort of not care about things and laugh things off and not take anything seriously when perhaps it should be.
And how do you feel about groups like XR, Extinction Rebellion? So they're doing like they're the ones that kind of super glue themselves to the...
Oh, I've heard of them.
Or stand on top of tube trains and upset...
It's extensive. I mean, I think that definitely sends a message, but at the same time, the people that don't care, I think they'll sort of look at that and they'll just see, oh, some idiots holding up the traffic or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do think there are better ways of going around it than... I mean, there was this one case, there was a protest about something or other, and it led to an ambulance not being able to get to a hospital, and the people in it, I think, died. So obviously, with things like this, there needs to be some sort of conformity to keeping things sort of more lawful than it can do, because it can get out of hand with somebody's really extreme about something, really passionate about something.
I understand. And that's why I'm on the council.
Yeah.
That's why I stood for election, really, is because I was trying to use the system that we have to change the way things happen.
With Avalon Community Energy, would you say there are any particular events that stood out more successful than others?
We launched, as Avalon Community Energy, we launched a report commissioned by the MEP Molly Scott Cato, the report showed that the southwest of England could be completely self-sufficient in renewable energy if only we put the investment in. And that report has been around now for over 10 years, and it's still not been actioned. So rather than building onshore wind and offshore wind, but onshore wind is particularly the most brilliant way of producing energy. And people go, oh, but it looks so terrible. Well, I don't know if they've ever noticed a pylon, the motorway, Hinkley C, I mean.
Doesn't look particularly attractive either.
There's lots of things that don't look good, but this produces the energy we need. And then you can run electric cars rather than doing more pollution. And I know that every item has its payoff with waste, and everything is landfill waiting to happen. But it's just a more useful way of doing things. So we launched that. We had a big event in Glastonbury Town Hall. It was a superb event, and it does stick in my mind. And sadly, here we are, over 10 years later, still worrying about how we're going to pay for Russian gas.
It'd be nice to see a bit more change, like in a quicker amount of time.
I'm a community, like if I'm on anything, I'm a community organizer, and I'm really inspired by people like Saul Alinsky, and the big community organizer most people know is Barack Obama. But Saul Alinsky used to smoke cigarettes. A Jewish activist from the 1950s to 70s, and he came out of Chicago, and he talked like a gangster. He grew up at the time of Al Capone. He used to smoke incessantly, talk like this. And there's a beautiful film of him talking to First Nationers in Canada about their situation, and he said he's going, when it comes to this sort of thing, and he means change. When it comes to this sort of thing, forget the adults. It's the young people you gotta change, because that is true. It's the young people who are going to change things. By the time you reach my age, if you haven't worked it out, you're done.
Would you say Avalon Community Energy is better suited to helping individual homes and families, or more public places such as businesses and schools?
So Avalon Community, that's a good question. Avalon Community Energy is set up to put in large arrays. That's really what we want to do. And so rooftop, what we did at the very beginning, we held a number of public meetings in Glastonbury and the surrounding area to really find out what people wanted from renewable energy, because there's no point in sticking up a load of big wind turbines and the whole of the community is then chasing after you with flaming torches and pitchforks.
Trying to knock them down.
Yeah. So we listened, and what came out from our consultation was that the good people in our area were very happy with rooftop solar. So then we did a feasibility study on rooftop solar, because there's not only where you site it, but have you got a good connection to the main? You've got to get onto the grid, and then there's things like grid polarity that you have to consider, which is how much energy can it take as well. And so all of these things needed to be calculated. And what we ended up with was putting it on large roofs of things like schools. You're quite right. Yeah. We've done a number of schools, which has been great, because that helps the young people who are in the school understand about renewable energy, and they turn the panels and the energy generation into part of the school's own curriculum.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a school over in Street that we've done.
Brookside. Yeah. I actually I questioned the head teacher about some things just to see how he felt and everything. He was very happy about the installations, and I'll talk about that up on the podcast later.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's a good reason to come back to these excellent podcasts. So it's better for public buildings, because we need to raise the money to invest in large arrays that are going to have an impact. That's really what we're about. But as a councillor, because I'm interested in this, what we've done through we've set up a thing called the Climate and Ecological Emergency Advisory Committee for Glastonbury Town Council, which is bringing in the expertise of members of our community who may not be elected, but certainly have a good handle on what's happening. And we use them to provide reports to the council. And one of the things that they envisioned, was that people could buy, everyday folk in Glastonbury who wanted to put solar panels on their roof could buy in bulk so that they get their solar panels cheaper. And so if you had like 5 or 6 houses who, they don't have to be next to each other, they can just be any 5 or 6 houses that they buy their panels together, reducing the price, and they're installed by the same company. And so we've got this bulk buy project that we've been promoting as a council to help everyday folk who want to put panels on the roof of their own home.
Yeah. Well, that leads quite well into next thing I'd like to ask to the people that are listening and want to help out and everything. What can they do to help?
So with Avalon Community Energy in particular, if people have any capacity to do this, they could join as a member, because a cooperative is really the sum of its parts. And as a mutual society, we need members. And it costs £10, a one-off payment of £10 to join Avalon Community Energy. And that means that you could, if you wish, you could stand for being a director, or you might want to get involved in the group that does the Community Benefit Fund and help other people through that. And that the Community Benefit Fund at the moment, this is where the surplus that we generate as a company is not invested in our shareholders particularly and improving all that sort of stuff. The money that we make isn't going into the directors' pockets. There are no chums here, ladies and gentlemen. What's happening is that it goes to support people. And that big project at the moment we're looking at is helping people insulate their homes, because not only is it about producing good, clean, renewable energy that is not nuclear, but also about reducing the amount of energy that we use.
Yeah.
And that's good in 2 fronts. One, all energy is going to have some cost somewhere. And 2, it helps reduce your bills. And that's going to become so much more important for people right now, because the economic disaster that we're facing is phenomenal. They've been putting it off for a while, but they can't fool us anymore with it. And it's coming, and it's going to bite us on the bum. So we're going to have an economic crisis in this country. It's happening now. You see the petrol prices are going up. I'm not trying to be doom-laden, but it's happening. So really, that's what we're trying to address with Avalon Community Energy, with Glastonbury Town Council. And it's not just the Greens. It's like everybody on the council is pulling with this. The Conservatives, the Liberals, they've all got it on the council. We've been really pushing that agenda, I guess, which is the only agenda that matters, is trying to reduce our impact on the planet and help us survive. Of course, the planet will do quite well without us, I'm sure, but it would be nice to be here. So
and enjoy it all.
Certainly for your generation.
Yes.
Would
be nice.
It would be very nice, and to have the sort of standard of living that we've become used to without the destructive. It's a cost-benefit analysis situation. Anyway, so coming back, we've just been really pushing for this agenda to be higher up the totem pole. Right? Some councils, it's not even on the totem pole. It's in the bit of the pole that's in the ground that no one's looking at. But we've got it right at the top, next to supporting the community, and so helping to insulate, helping to provide people with the capacity to buy solar panels, helping produce clean energy. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
End of political broadcast. I'm sorry about this.
So how close would you say Glastonbury is to its target of being carbon neutral by 2030?
So this is a very interesting question. There are 2 stages to this. One is that Glastonbury Town Council, in its own operations, wants to be carbon neutral by 2025, so that we can demonstrate how you do it. We've employed a climate emergency and resilience officer as a council we're one of the few councils at our level as a town council, which is effectively a parish council, to do this. We've done it because we're on the edge of the moors and the levels, and one of the things that's going to happen is that they're going to get flooded. So that's why the word resilience is in this officer's title, because we'll need to be resilient to the changes that are coming.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to build a two-pronged approach to this. One is we will reduce our carbon footprint, and we've had the officer in place for just over a year. We've managed to reduce our carbon footprint by a quarter already. And so if we can do that kind of every year, get it down and down and down, I think we'll hit our target by 2025.
No, that's brilliant.
If we do that, then we can explain to some of the other businesses and some of the other operations in town how we did it and how they might be able to do it. Because there's no point in trying to lead people somewhere that you haven't gone. So we want to practice what we preach. As far as the Glastonbury itself, I don't know. That will be down to people and whether or not they feel that this is important. I think that Glastonbury, like everywhere, like the young people you were talking about, there are people who feel passionately about this in our town. And I know a number of people who've already reduced their homes to net zero carbon. They actually have carbon-free homes. They're absolutely, they're off grid even in a house that looks like a normal house. They've used insulation. They got panels. They got ground source heat pumps, air source heat pumps. They've done the works. It's quite remarkable. And the house looks just like every other house in town. It can be done, but just like you were saying about the young people, there are people who haven't really. They think it's a myth, or they think there's still people who say the climate emergency is not real. That what we're concerned about is something that's natural. My answer to that is, well, if we do stuff to address the climate emergency, we address the wider ecological disaster that's happening. If we reduce the amount of waste we're producing because we're concerned about the climate emergency, that's a good thing for the planet, regardless of whether or not the climate emergency is real. Why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you live more in harmony with the planet and make sure that all these other species are okay? Because we're all part of an interconnected, complex system that we're tampering with, like blindly going in and mucking about with stuff we don't even know what the consequences of it are. But it's okay, because we're the human beings and we've got science on our side and we're going to tame nature. Well,
we're using science, and this is what it's saying. We need to, sort these things out.
Well, science needs to be mindful of itself. And so the great developments within renewable power, of course, is all going to be people who are engineers and scientists who are involved in that, who have clocked something about the actual outcomes of the outputs they're making. And this is really it. We're very good at looking at output.
Yeah.
We've made 40 cars, but we don't look at the outcomes. We've just, we've just hit
torn
somebody.
down a rainforest.
or run into someone. What I'm trying to say is that we don't consider outcomes. It's a classic thing human beings do. Output's good, outcomes,
So, are there any particular events or situations that didn't quite go as hoped?
Well, I think that one of the things that I was hoping was that as we exist as Avalon Community Energy, and we started to put large arrays on big roofs, that benefited the people who owned the roof because they were getting electricity generated. It benefited the people of Glastonbury and the surrounding area through the community benefit fund, so that the money generated from the solar panels is going to help the community. And also that by producing clean energy, we're helping to reduce carbon and pollution and helping to tackle the climate and ecological emergencies. I was kind of hoping that people with large roofs, I'm not going to mention any names, Clarks, the people with large roofs might come to us and say, why don't you, as a community benefit society doing wonderful things with the community, put some solar panels on our very large roof?
Hopefully they're listening. And
well, dear listener, so not just Clark's, but a number of other businesses that have large roofs here. I thought they would just be knocking on the door going, can we have solar panels put on our roof so we can help reduce carbon, improve the environmental footprint of our business, and do a community benefit? Sadly not. And so if you are listening there, if you're the directors of any companies, I won't mention any names, please come to us and see what we can do together, because this is absolutely crucial. We won't necessarily, I'm an old man, we don't necessarily see the damage we've done. I'm talking now to you, the directors of these large companies here who have big roofs. We won't see the damage we've done through exporting stuff across the world, for instance, bringing timber in, for instance, driving those big lorries around, for instance. But the young people I'm talking with today, they will be seeing it. So we have a duty, don't we, to do everything we can to make sure that their lives are better.
Yeah. I mean, it would make a massive impact if these places with massive roofs, as you're saying, if they went to you and installed these things, it would be really good for the community and everything.
Sadly, the human beings are only going to deal with something when it's right on top of them. We're really, really good at looking the other way. Here we are, on the edge of catastrophe. And it's remarkable, isn't it? People like Chris, what's his name? Chris Packham, is it? The guy who does the Nature Watch. Anyway, he talks out about the environment and he gets death threats.
That's terrible.
Like what? This guy's talking about being kind with nature and trying to live in a more balanced way on the planet, and he gets death threats.
This is what I'm saying. Some people do care really passionately, and then others just kind of laugh it all off and don't treat it as it should be.
I reflect on this a lot, and I think that what we've got is we're looking at a world, a human world in the Western world, a human world that is going through the stages of grief. And grief is very defined stages, and the grief is around the loss of the world we were told we were going to have. When I was growing up, people who had cars, they didn't really think very much about the cost of that, apart from how much it cost their pocket. There was no thought at all about the environmental impact. We thought, we grew up in a world where you turn the light on and it was just there, and you didn't think where the energy's coming from. We looked at the food on our plate, and no one thought about where that had come from. No one, you buy cheap clothes. No one even questioned that there might be still things such as economic slavery happening in this world. No questions asked. What we were told was, you never had it so good, and we didn't. And that is a dream. Talk about the American dream. That's a dream. Consumerism as an explicit policy is a dream that was sold to us because it made the economy that we co-created work. And it's no good because the cost of it, the real cost of it, is a disaster.
Yeah.
And so we're still being sold that, buy the whole set, get one free. Have you thought about this? I even saw in some paper it said, will you take the 30 wear challenge? The 30 wear challenge? I wear my clothes so they fall apart. What are you talking about? I've just got a new coat and I'm going to wear it 30 times before I throw it away. What is wrong with people? This is just incredible. We're still living in a dream. And so we've got to wake up to the fact that it's not real. The world we co-created, market economy, expanding growth, everything, it's not going to be able to be sustained. It's not sustainable. And people have got an inkling of that. And the first stage of grief is denial.
I remember reading somewhere a funny quote, the best part of the American dream is waking up from it.
So the first stage of grief is denial. There is no climate emergency. The second stage of grief is anger. Getting very angry. Chris Packham, how dare you say that we're destroying the environment? I'm going to kill you. And so check it out. Check out the stages of grief. I think we've got a human species in the Western world that's going through grief, the stages of grief at the loss of the dream that we were sold.
Wow. It was really really good to have this nice long interview and conversation, and thank you, John, for coming on.
The best thing about an interview with John Cousins is waking up after he's finished. Thank you. Well, I'm really. I thank you for having me. I don't get the opportunity actually to talk about my own personal philosophy much, although it might sound like I've rehearsed it well. I don't, and so it's a great pleasure to come and talk with you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And thank you, dear listener. GFM, of course, greatest radio station in the world.
Thank you, Harrison, for being tech support. But yeah, I will say goodbye to you now, and that will be the end of this interview.
Well, cheerio. See you later, alligator.
I must say once again a special thank you to the Mayor for coming in for that interview. There were many great things discussed, and as stated before, if you would like to listen to the entire interview with John Cousins, you can find it by going onto Strode College's YouTube channel, StrodeTV. As stated earlier in the interview, I got in contact with the head teacher of Brookside School, Brian Walton, to answer some questions we had for him about his experience with Avalon Community Energy. He has told us that they had a good experience with ACE and reached out specifically as he knew the chair of the organisation. When asked about the benefits they've seen through using solar energy, he told us that they save about £3,000 a year on energy bills, and that it quite naturally sets a good example on carbon reduction to the local community. They have advised other schools that may have been worried about things such as maintenance, and have said that the local energy cooperative took a lot of the stress and responsibility out of their hands. Furthermore, they haven't experienced any issues with the panels whatsoever, and stated that they have worked fine even in more challenging weather conditions. Quite clearly then, there doesn't seem to be much in the way of other schools, businesses, and anyone else who's interested in renewable energy from at least having a look into going solar. Now of course, there's far more that can be done to bring an end to the climate crisis than just using renewable energy, which is why our next guest, Romana Ghirardello, is coming on, so we can find out about more sustainable methods of farming food and other ways to get all the sustenance we need, but in a more eco-friendly manner. Now we are joined by a fellow peer of mine and another resident of Glastonbury, Romana Ghirardello. Say hi.
Hello everyone, it's very nice to be here, Seb. Thanks for having me.
No problem. My pleasure. So, first thing I'd like to ask you, seeing as we're both working on the same course project, what is it exactly you're doing for your final major project?
Well, I'm looking at Feed Avalon, who are a subdivision of the Somerset Climate Action Network organisation. They look at horticulture and sustainably sourced produce. It's all organic, it's all ethical, it's all plant-based, it's all very good for the planet, very good for the community. And it's one of the local ways we can make small steps to a larger goal of a carbon neutral Glastonbury, potentially a carbon neutral Somerset, potentially a carbon neutral England. And what we're all hoping for, I suppose, is a carbon neutral world, which, as difficult as it is to picture, is the concept that I think we're all very attracted to at the moment.
So, would you say that there's an easy way for people to get in contact with Feed Avalon? If they wanted to, I mean, do they hold events? Is there a website they can look at? Can they call people up? How does it work?
So yeah, Feed Avalon have a website with a news bulletin, and you can see all the things that they're up to. They do this thing called the seed swap, which involves, it's basically horticulture. It's farming with fruits and vegetables and organic produce, sometimes herbs and spices as well. And it's a really good idea, I think. And they will also they have their contact details listed somewhere on the website. There's an email address you can look at. It might be a phone number as well, I'm not too sure. But getting in touch is quite easy. And myself and another media student have had to get in touch with them to film with them, and then they get back to you in a very timely manner. And they're lovely people as well. So once you get in contact, you're definitely in for like, some very pleasant conversations with some pleasant people.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. So you said they sort of hold events and things from time to time. Is that more so they'll motivate you to do things with an announcement, or will there be like you go to a place and sort of help sort of with a bought piece of land?
Well, a lot of what they do, from what I can make out from the interview that we filmed a week ago, I think, they do a lot of work at Red Brick Building. And they have this sort of garden space around the back, and they do, they're building all these...
Allotments?
Yeah, no, not just that. They had a dome.
Oh, yeah. Just like the EPA.
Yeah, the EPA. They've got a dome in the making that they're gonna make, and I can't remember what plans they said they had for it, but it all sounds very interesting. And the seed swap, I believe, involves just planting new things and how to look after a plant, how to grow your own food, how to cook with it as well, because some of it's culinary.
No, that's good, because I mean, I suppose a lot of people might not know a lot of these things if they haven't been taught, and it can be, well, yeah.
It's a learning process. Yeah, it serves as a way for people to learn a skill, which is what a lot of the Red Brick Building accommodates, learning skills. You have a space for most things. It was amazing the amount of open spaces they had for people to get up to all sorts of bits and pieces, like textiles and carpentering and just all these really interesting things. I saw a dragon in there.
Oh, wow.
Someone built a dragon out of nothing but scrap. And I love stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's very it looks cool, and it's, I think, very much in keeping with a lot of the local mythology and everything.
Oh,
I mean, dragons and knights and all sorts. It's really nice.
It's sustainable as well, because they're making use of something that doesn't seem to have a use anymore. So rather than letting things, I don't know, go to landfill or whatever, you utilize them in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You can look at one old lamp and not think much of it, and then you see it, and I think they had like a lamp as like one of the eyes of the dragon. You think, wow, that looks great.
That's brilliant.
So they're really good over there as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, back to, of course, the sort of planting side of things and everything. How much do you think the world could benefit from leaning more towards, say, plant-based farming as opposed to the animal side?
Well, I think there's hundreds of reasons that it's a better idea. And I think that eating meat is one of those things that has become integrated into society that I think we need to let go. Not maybe eating meat, but definitely farming animals, because cell-grown
to the
meat,
extent.
yeah,
Yeah.
because cell-grown meat I like. I think that's a great idea. People don't have to give up meat. It's just sourced differently.
Yeah.
I don't want any cruelty, and it's also friendly to the planet as well.
Mhm.
If it's grown from a cell, everything is made of cells, everything living. So how sustainable is that? But farming animals, I think, is just I think people sometimes forget. Some people don't even know where meat comes from, and I think that because when animals are farmed, the amount of damage it does to the planet is colossal. And that, as opposed to, I don't know, growing a
Tomato,
yeah, exactly. It's it's very different. I mean, if you think about it, I don't think it's even necessary, because we have the tools now. And like I said, it does a lot of environmental damage. And I don't mean to get grisly, but I mean, the way that we get meat is quite inhumane as well, in my opinion. I think that, the animals don't live their full life expectancy. They don't live particularly happy lives. I mean, yeah, free range, sure, but that doesn't mean that much. It's still captivity. It's still an early death sentence. Baby chicks are emascerated. Calves are torn from mothers. They die awful deaths, and they might be quick, but they're still sentient. They probably didn't want to die. And so there's a moral issue here as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, all the organs that we're obviously not going to eat, they all just get dumped in lakes. And all of the excrement from, intensively farmed animals, that doesn't just disappear. That doesn't vanish into thin air. It goes into water, and it's really damaging.
Yeah,
It's really damaging.
and then would I suppose affect marine life?
It does, yeah. And of course, fishing. I mean, fish is not even, I don't think it's that safe to eat anymore, because we're getting
No,
fish
I mean
from...
the microplastics and everything like that.
People have found plastic in their fish and everything. And I do not have a problem with people eating meat. You know, some people probably need it.
Obviously, I mean, there are definitely a lot of problems that come with farming animals. As you were saying, like a lot of things quite inhumane. But realistically, I don't think it is possible to see everyone suddenly become like vegetarian and vegan and
Oh
everything.
no, and that's why I like
You've got
cell
to,
grown.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's a way out of this. Because I don't think everyone should have to go vegan. That's my choice as much as it's your choice not to be. And I'm not trying to tell anyone to be vegan. I'm just trying to say we need to stop farming animals. The process of animal agriculture, profitable as it may be, is not. And I know that there's farming jobs and everything, but it's possible. I mean, you can Google it. There's been plenty of conversions from like dairy farmers to crop farmers. It's not an impossible transition. It is possible. There's not really much standing in the way of this. I think it'd be such a big step forward if we use the tools we already have, and animals wouldn't overpopulate. The reason there's so many of them is because they are treated like a product and they're mass produced. And I think that, you know, I think people sometimes wonder why some vegans are angry. I'm not angry personally, because no one listens to an angry loudmouth. But people might listen to reason and to sense and to facts, and I feel like I've highlighted some of those.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm right. I might be wrong. Maybe maybe everything I've said is malarkey. But I think that this is something we really need to look at. And I think there's a reason that people like Greta Thunberg are vegan, who are conscious of the climate because they understand the issues. But what I really would love to see is for animal agriculture to be phased out, because meat doesn't have to go away, right? I just think that treating animals badly needs to go away.
I think because like there's always definitely going to be some level of animal farming. I see. I don't think it's all going to be stopped, but I do think that at the very least the extent on which it happens could be reduced. Because look at the culling of pigs that was in the news a little while ago and stuff like that, and there's a lot of situations in which I think like, I mean, meat used to be kind of a special thing. It used to be something you'd only have maybe like once a week if you were lucky and quite rich. And now it's like an everyday item, which is, you know, not even how it used to be. So I think the extent of animal farming could at least be reduced. And it's not like tons of people would lose their jobs necessarily, because farming is more than just animals. You've you know, with Feed Avalon, you've got it in plants and all sorts. And there's much more that you can do with all of that land. That it's not like it's just going to waste or be turned into an apartment complex or anything. Like there's
I think that the thing is, it's not the consumer's fault. I know we live in the free market and supply and demand, but it is honestly not. I think the problem is that the government are behind the times on a lot of climate action. And if anything, I think that progress has been delayed rather than reinforced, whatever people might tell you. Locally, maybe, yes, but our government isn't very fussed about that right now.
No.
Because it's not profitable. So there is an issue with that. And I'm not blaming anyone here. I'm blaming the government for not making the right decisions.
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, there's the controversy that comes with making quite radical decisions, but at the end of the day, I think if it's for the greater good, that's more important. And some people think that it's a bit of an oversensitive view. You can't really help but not avoid the moral issues, because it has been proven that a pig has the intelligence of sort of like a young child.
Yeah.
They have good memories. They're quite emotional animals. And I think sometimes if it is so humane, I think the best question to ask is, well, because what some people worry that if aliens ever visited, they'd treat humans like we treat animals. So if we're worried about that, then surely what we're doing isn't great. You know, I think everyone knows that in the back of their head, but I think you've either got people that deny it or try and shoot down your argument. But I think you really should look at it, and you should look at it and make your own mind up as to whether or not you feel like it is ethical, whether or not it aligns with your moral code.
Yeah, and then you decide if you think you're going to change your life to reflect that.
What did it for me personally was honestly just an advert I saw on I was just scrolling through Instagram.
Yeah.
I was trying to get more sustainably conscious, so I was trying to limit my use of plastics and things like that. And I just run into this advert because social media likes to accommodate itself to your interests. And I saw this abattoir, and I saw a cow, and it was sort of crying, and it was trying to run away. And obviously in front of it was the death sentence, basically.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I thought, well, it's not okay, is it? And seeing such behavior from a sentient being, because they are sentient, really made me feel awful about supporting that sort of industry.
Yeah.
And
Tugs on your heartstrings.
it did. I felt really sorry and this happens every day, and it really does upset me. It's only because I feel bad for them.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm not trying to say like, oh, we're better than you and whatever, because I hate how vegans are portrayed. And we have all the wrong vegans in the spotlight.
Yeah.
We're not all like that. We don't hate meat eaters. Most of my friends eat meat, and I don't question them for it. I simply have my own views like they have theirs. And if they never ever decide to like, oh, well, I might do this instead, like I might limit my meat intake, I don't care. That's their decision.
And obviously, I suppose one thing that some people might say is, well, we need meat for the sake of health reasons. And, I mean, what would you say in response to that?
Well, obviously, my issue is not with the consumption of meat, rather the way that it is sourced. However, for the sake of answering the question, red meat is listed by the WHO, World Health Organization, as the World Health Organization.
Who?
Funny. Very good, very good. That took me a second. But it's listed as a carcinogen, which puts it in the same category as things like cigarettes, which will increase your risk of heart disease or certain cancers or diabetes. It's not really very good for you, red meat.
Yeah.
And yes, there is protein and maybe a small amount of other things, but you can get, I guarantee you can get all of those things.
I mean, some of the main things, I said protein, nuts, and things like that.
Yeah. Beans, nuts, leafy greens.
Iron, where would you get that from?
Well, I like to get mine personally, spinach, kale, really, really, really high in iron.
Yeah.
No, it's and seeds, certain seeds, and it makes it sound like I eat like a bird. I guarantee you I don't. I have a nice varied diet, but this is the bare minimum of like how you could go about consuming it.
Because there are ways around getting all the nutrients without needing that.
I've been vegan for nearly 2 years, and I'm yet to have any health complications from it. I'm strong. I have enough protein. I have enough iron. Nothing feels off. I have a nice amount of energy. We don't really, from my perspective, need it. Some people probably do need a bit of fish or meat in their diet.
Yeah.
Or eggs, right? And I completely appreciate that. And you're not invisible. I see that. That's fine. I understand that. But I think the grand majority of us probably don't need it.
Yeah, and we can find so many of the
there's
things.
Other ways of doing it. So if that's something that was on any of your minds, I think it's a good thing to highlight that. Try it. Seriously, even if it's just for a month, give it a go, because it is not as extreme as people make it seem. But very good question.
Well said. Okay, well, thank you for coming on. It's been a very insightful conversation with you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And I'll look to wrapping up this podcast now. So
thank you.
Once again, special thank you to Romano Ghirardello for coming on to be interviewed. Now, that about wraps it up for this special podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed listening, and hopefully you've learnt a thing or two about things that we can do to better help the climate. And with that, I say goodbye. And one last thing I have to add for legal reasons. I got my background music from www.bensound.com.